Good morning. Welcome to the April 22nd SES training, Roadmap to Success. It is just about 10 o'clock. We'll begin here in just a few minutes' time, and I'll be right back with you as soon as I begin recording this webinar. Good morning. This is John Fallett. Once again, it's April 22nd. You are tuned into Roadmap to Your Success training program. This is a 22-week training program. I believe we're on week number 3 at this time. We did skip last week due to the holiday. Hopefully all of you had a great holiday. We are once again beginning. It is 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time to obviously respect your time as well as others wanting to get tuned in, tuned on, and we will begin here at this point in time. So once again, you're on week 3 in regards to the training platform. If you've missed week 1 or week 2, or you're interested in receiving those webinars, certainly reach out. We'd be happy to provide them to you. As soon as the transcript is done, those will also be on YouTube as well. So feel free to visit the SES Agent YouTube channel for any agent-related videos that you'd like to gain more information on. You may also visit the Senior Enrollment Solutions YouTube channel, which is more consumer-driven, as opposed to agent questions and product, things of that nature. But the Senior Enrollment Solutions YouTube channel will also have a tremendous amount of information for your consumers and for yourself as well. So without further ado, let's begin. Once again, I'm John with Senior Enrollment Solutions. You are tuned in to April 22nd. Yes, this is the 3rd webinar of this series. So obviously you have links to the series themselves. If you have any questions, certainly put it in the chat box. Everyone is currently muted at this point in time. And we are going to discuss, although not a happy discussion by any means, your contracting, death, and retirement. How to protect your legacy. You know, many of us are in this industry because it provides a renewal income, which is a beautiful thing to know that if anything ever really happens to you, an ailment, you come down with cancer, you have a serious dismemberment, or you pass away, that you should have something established. You should have this life insurance policy, if you will, which is your renewal income, set aside in a game plan set up to be able to protect your family, your loved ones, and more importantly, your business if you are structured as a business entity. So let's go through how to protect yourself, more importantly, how to understand your contracting further in depth, and how to really understand what you're looking for to ensure that if something were to occur to you, it's Friday, you're smacked by some drunk driver on the way home from the office, how are you making sure that your family and your agency, your loved ones are protected and set up adequately? So first and foremost, disclaimer, right? Obviously, if you sit through all 22 of these webinars, or even the majority of the ones of interest, I assure you this should and will launch your business to another level. I would love to take the Pepsi challenge with you and go through last year's 1099s compared to next year's 1099s. If you follow the path and you take notes and you get yourself organized, and we go through all of this over 22 weeks, I assure you this upcoming annual enrollment period, the end of COVID, hopefully, and a whole chapter of life will turn for you in regards to increasing your business and increasing your revenue. We're going to bring you back to topics. Sales 101 for the most part of the first few weeks as we go through this, and then we'll dive into product specifics, final expense, life insurance, Medicare, technology, and then preparing for your annual enrollment period, your carriers, etc. So follow along the roadmap with us. Right now, we're still on business basics, and I believe the next few weeks we'll start diving more into the product knowledge. Provide additional time for Q&A. We will be logged in. Everyone on this call are licensed agents, I'm guessing, or soon to be licensed agents. Anyone answering the chat room, obviously as a licensed agent, would be able to help you with any questions that you have. If you're missing anything, please reach out. If you're looking for slides, Excels, maps, whatever it may be that can help your business and help you get organized along the way, certainly put it in the chat room, or I'll provide the email address and the 24-hour text line here to you in a moment as well. So we are planning on 10 to 11. Some of these webinars may be a little shorter than others, but we will be logged in until noon. So if you happen to have a question, you can always log back in, provide the question in the chat box, or you can certainly email over to us or just simply phone us and we'd be happy to help you. Request additional topics. This is an ever-changing webinar series, if you will. I would love to include any topics that may not have been discussed that you feel as though are important, or any additional questions that you have. We can always bring them up in the following week or several weeks webinar as we get through this. Obviously, many questions that we begin to receive will be answered in following sessions. So if you do have questions that aren't part of the next series, hang on tight. They'll be in following series as we already built out the webinars and answer those questions along the way. How are you set up to protect your loved ones? And that really is the biggest thing that we need to talk about today. It is super important to make certain that your contracts and your business are aligned appropriately to make sure that if and when, it's inevitable, right? It's more of an when than an if. When that time does occur, you have your will set up. If that's something that's important to you, you have a living trust set up here in Michigan. If you own property, that's really important so it doesn't go into probate. But more importantly is this renewal income that you've structured and worked so hard along the lines of your career to ensure that it is being transferred over or being paid out to your loved ones. Let's review week 2 for just a moment. In week 2, we went through updating your NIPR and your DIFS, obviously making sure that the state, your agency principals or your uplines, FMOs, whomever, have adequate information for you. We have your updated banking information. The state has your updated email address, phone number, and address, as some of us have moved during the last few years' time, but going in and ensuring that everyone has updated information for you. Updating your carrier information, making sure that your E&O is shared with your upline so we then can share it with the carriers, making certain that your banking information is up to date with the carriers, with your upline, provide it to SCS and we'll send it down to the carriers that you have contracted. More importantly, if you do have any out-of-state licenses, that those out-of-state licenses are updated and shared as well. That you've gone through any out-of-state fees. One discussion that we were having with an agency is how do I expand out of my resident state? And understanding those fees, not only for the writing agent or principal of the agency, but also the agency itself, as those fees are different. If you are a med sup agent, annuity agent, life agent, understanding the underwriting from state to state is very important. Certainly running rates, utilize the SCS quoting engine for your med sup rates. You'll also see, obviously, that there's certain carriers that operate in certain states that don't operate in other states. Not every carrier is nationwide or, more importantly, competitive on a state-to-state basis. Certainly, before annual enrollment period occurs, and we just yesterday received the AHIP launch date. It's earlier again this year. It's June 24th. So the AHIP, that national test, is launching on the 24th of June. Shortly thereafter, you'll start having carrier certifications that need to be handled prior to the annual enrollment period kickoff. If you happen to have your CE requirements due around that time, it may behoove of you to get them done prior to that 4th of July weekend. The difference, once again, between marketing co-ops and bonuses and how to steer clear as an agent, as CMS is beginning to crack down on these agencies providing this per app bonus to lure you into their agency. Agency hierarchy, GA contracts, and then we also went over the licensed only agent, what that means, being an LOA agent versus or compared to being a street agent, and the pros and cons to both. Agents may not once again receive kickbacks, bonuses, or incentives on PDP or MAPD policies. Certainly, if you're a financial planner on the line, you also understand that receiving referrals from time to time, depending on how you're structured, isn't acceptable either. We'll always work with you to understand what a kickback is versus an incentive versus a marketing co-op, but it is very important as an agent, as some of these agencies are starting to go into their FDR reviews with carriers and with CMS, that you're not accepting that bonus, that you're not part of that, if you will, because it would be a shame, obviously, to lose your license simply because someone's trying to bribe you. Only agencies licensed and appointed may receive overrides. That's certainly something very important to keep in mind as well. Marketing co-ops. Obviously, receipts are always required. Very important that you're tracking that side of the business and watch the gray area to once again remain compliant in how you're operating your business. Everyone has a different business model, and understanding everyone else's business model will help you understand, prepare, and organize yourself to create your business model on what your goals and views are over the next year, 3 and 5 year game plan. If you're offered a sign-on bonus or a per app bonus, once again, run away. This is illegal and it's not compliant. So going into your agency contracts, we did discuss what constitutes an FMO. And in certain states, Michigan being one of them, due to regional carriers not upholding or having a policy and procedure guideline on what is considered an FMO or NMO, here's a few things that you may want to consider when placing your business and your retirement and your livelihood through your upline. 1, do they have a letterhead? Do they have a policy? Did you sign an agreement with them? What are their procedures like? It's okay to ask these questions, especially if they're holding your renewal income or you're an LOA agent that's being paid by the agency. If that agency happens to go bust, what are you going to do? If their daughter gets a DUI and they're being sued by the insurance company and they're needing to come up with hundreds of thousands of dollars that they may or may not have, how is that, or is that going to affect you as an agent by having your contracts placed through that agency? That's a huge thing to consider and think through on where you're placing that business or who your upline or FMO is. Do they have a legal and compliance? Do they provide not only their legal and compliance that they should have in place, but are they providing that knowledge and that information to you as an agent? Are they helping you submit, or by all means, do they have the ability to submit any marketing materials that now need approved through CMS? Once again, CMS changed all their marketing approval strategies. If you need help, if you want the CMS guidelines, we'd be happy to provide you that link. But anything relating to carrier specifics, even if you mention having dental or vision or anything on a trifold or a postcard or your business card, that now all needs approved through CMS. Do they have a standalone office, or are they working out of the basement of their home? Do they have enough supporting staff to help you make sure that your questions are answered in a timely fashion, that you have materials if needed, and that you're able to do what you do best, which is conduct business in the marketplace? How many states are they in? Are they only in 1? Or are they in at least 15, 20? Do they have enough carriers to really help multiple states? Even if it's only one product line, Medicare Advantage, final expense, what have you, do they have enough products within that product line or carriers to be fluid in multiple states, as there'll be multiple carriers offering products in those states? More importantly, do they have a full understanding of that CMS compliance to keep you compliant, to keep you out of hot water with CMS, FCC, and everyone else down the path? How are they helping to protect you as an agent? Your license, your contracts, and your livelihood are all really dependent upon where you're placing that business with. So be incredibly aware of this. Ask questions and make sure that you're not getting in with an agency that may not be necessarily stable, fluid, compliant. Watch what you're doing on that contracting side. And obviously, who is being called or stating that they are an FMO or basically bragging of the title of an FMO. So to review, we had a lot of questions come across watching or seeing this particular slide. The acronyms, once again, and how that affects you as an agent. So most carriers, the national ones specifically, they have a chain of command, if you will, that they would request that agents go through. The one thing carriers do incredibly well is they take care of the consumer. So referring specifically to a Medicare Advantage plan carrier, they make sure the network is strong. They have a large enough network of doctors and hospitals, et cetera, to allow enough consumers or patients to see a variety of doctors or specialists. The carrier makes sure that the billing is taken care of appropriately, that their claims are taken care of appropriately. They have the consumer side buttoned up. And that's what they should be doing, is making sure that they have a great product that you can go out and offer to your consumer, and that there's competition in the marketplace where you have multiple different products or carriers that you're able to offer to the same consumer, each one having their own little niche in what would help your consumer best with their particular needs or health status. The carriers rely on agencies to support in doing any ride-alongs with new agents, helping agents complete any new contracting, understanding the different carriers and products offered, either in an Excel spreadsheets or on PDF documents. If you have any questions, and we'll get into that, I believe, later on in May, and what we do to help provide that information to you. But it really depends on the level of security, compliance, and responsibility. So the production is part of that. And as a general agency, typically that would require 5 agents. So if you yourself are a producing agent and you have a few colleagues that say, hey, I want to learn what you do, that allows for you to receive a small override or administration fee from either the upline or from the carrier to take care of your time in supporting those agents. The next level up is an MGA, obviously more production, more responsibility. You're in need of generally having a freestanding brick and mortar office and some kind of staff, support staff at that point in time. The SGA, once again, more production, more staff, more responsibility. The FMO generally handles most of the commission side. And that's really the change there, that it's not only the legal and the compliance that the FMOs are now responsible in taking care of for the agents, making sure your E&O is up to date and accurate, that the carriers have your state licenses. We take care as an FMO, the admin or the back office for you as an agent, once again, to continue to produce and do what you need to do. The TMO is generally now classified as either a TMO or an NMO, which would be your top contract. So sometimes carriers say, look, we don't want to deal with agents at all. We would like for you to be the one and only top contract where any agent questions, regardless of how many agencies, GAs, MGAs, SGAs, direct agents we have, we would like all those questions fielded through your office. And if your office has questions, we have a point of contact with the carrier, commissions, contracting, etc. And then the agents rely on the FMO or the NMO for all of those contracting, certification, and commission questions. So hopefully that clears the air a little bit. Once again, in certain states, that term is very convoluted and incredibly diluted, unfortunately, because of regional carriers. So understand when someone's stating that they're an FMO and requesting that contract from you for whatever carrier it may be, ask the questions. Where's your compliance department? Where's your legal department? What are you going to do to help protect me and my license and my livelihood? And more importantly, what are you going to do to protect me in regards to my commissions? Because that is certainly a huge topic when it comes to your commissions and making sure that you're paid appropriately. So what happens if a carrier goes bust, changes name or exits accounting? And let's go through some of these agency contracts and questions that we had 2 weeks ago on the seminar number 2. So that does happen. Generally, Medicare supplement carriers, those that have come and gone, and there's been quite a few that have come and gone or changed names, they will allow for your consumer to remain on the books. They'll not necessarily jack the rates up, but it all depends on how they're rated, right? Are they attained age, community rated, et cetera? We'll go into that in June, understanding how to underwrite your MedSup consumers. But if a carrier ends up leaving the marketplace as a MedSup carrier, that consumer continues to have the policy, you continue to receive commissions, and life continues to go on. On the Medicare Advantage plan side, that is more volatile because it is county by county based. And there have been carriers that have come and gone throughout the years. If you happen to have consumers that you're writing on a carrier that was in whatever county, and that carrier pulls out of that county and no longer conducts business there, either due to the size of their network or the ability to have a decent plan in that county, a competitive plan, they will pull out of that county. And if they do, on the Medicare Advantage or on the prescription drug side, you will need to go in and rewrite that business. You will generally lose that book of business as the carrier pulls out. If the carrier is no longer offering coverage, typically that's where your FMO or NMO comes into play, where we would fight for you to retain those administrative fees that per member per month commission that you're receiving from the carrier. We would still receive commissions from the carrier and assist the carrier in making sure that you're paid adequately and correctly. We would then funnel those commissions down to you as an agent. If the carrier changes name, which many are at this point in time, changing colors and logos, etc., the carrier changes name, typically they will reassign that book of business. They may or may not change the policy number, and that's certainly something as an agent you need to keep track of. If the carrier ends up changing the policy number, they may internally take that consumer from you, cease your commissions because it's a whole new policy. So watch that as carriers do come and go and change names. There are a few national carriers right now going through this process of name change and purchasing and merging with other organizations or carriers. So it's incredibly important for you to keep track of your book of business and make sure that you are really reconciling this with your upline or with the carrier. So if they leave the county, you need to rewrite those consumers. If they leave the state, you'll need to rewrite those consumers, which once again, staying organized and understanding your book, which we'll discuss, I believe, next week, on getting organized and preparing your book and having this time prior to the annual enrollment period and certifications beginning. But that is a volatile thing to think about when you're writing Medicare Advantage or prescription drug plans, that we really talk about on an annual basis how much production you've written. Is it worth it to recertify? Or are there any talks of that carrier pulling out of that county or pulling out of that state prior to any marketing being handled, or prior to you assuming that you're not needing to go out and move 100 consumers during the annual enrollment period? What happens if your upline changes names, retires? There's a lot of older agencies out there, agency principals, and that's amazing. You've had a great run at it. You've been in the industry for 30 years or longer. You obviously should know what you're doing by now, but at some point in time, they may retire. Understanding once again what their business model is. Are they leaving it to a child? Do they plan on selling it to a larger FMO? Are they just shutting their doors down and telling everyone to go pound sand? Those are important questions to keep in mind in regards to working with an upline. If they change names, obviously, many times, uh, as agencies go, even independent agents, you may start off with Jones Insurance Agency and realize that Jones Insurance Agency doesn't market very well. So then you set up the name and create the organization or the company of Midwest Medicare Solutions, or you set up something to where it's, mid Michigan or Arizona, agency of Medicare experts, or whatever you choose to name your company. You would then restructure that company through the state, through the government. You'd have a new EIN number. And then obviously you'd reach out to the carriers to change your EFT and to change your contracts and your state licenses to reflect that. If that does happen, that is a conversation you would need to have with your upline. That is a huge concern. Are you still being paid by the previous company? Did they dissolve the previous company? This happens in corporate America all the time. When you work for Southwest Airlines and all of a sudden they just pull that retirement out from underneath you and they take your health care and your 401k, and sorry, folks, that's a huge problem. So understanding and really asking those prying questions prior to placing your contracts with an agency is crucial in protecting your livelihood and protecting your family moving forward. How do they determine paying commissions for life of policy? So CMS comes up on an annual basis on how much CMS is going to be paying for a policy itself. And some carriers, we'll get into this further in June, some carriers will keep the commission rate of when you wrote that policy. So for instance, if you wrote a policy in 2020 and your commission rate was $20.83 per member per month, the carrier will not reflect that in 2022. They'll continue to pay you on what the commission rate was in 2020. And that is certainly something to keep in mind and to have a balanced book with, that you may not want to go out and write a ton of this particular carrier who has not increased their commission level, because 4 or 5 years down the road, it may cost you $5 a month in commissions per consumer. You have 400 people on the books. Well, that just costs you a tremendous amount of money on an annual basis because that carrier has chosen not to increase the CMS commission levels from year to year in keeping up with inflation for you. If you are paid directly by the carrier, I do not know of a carrier any longer that does not pay out full CMS commission amounts. If you're paid by the agency or by an FMO and you're receiving your commission checks or an EFT from that FMO or NMO, they can determine how much of that CMS amount they're looking to pay you. And some agencies say, hey, I'll pay you 80% of or 90% of. If you are being paid that way, 50% or 70% of what would be my question? Is it of full CMS, or is it what you're receiving on your commission level? Where am I at? And don't change this into an acronym. Let me know exactly what I'm being paid so I can understand what I'm worth and how much I can really budget my marketing for years to come. So how CMS determines what the commission levels are, that's a little above my pay grade. Obviously, that's done within Medicare as a whole, but it has increased year after year, and it is a substantial increase. So recognizing on the Medicare Advantage and PDP, not the MedSup, obviously, because we're discussing commissions for life, where MedSup will nip the commissions after 8 years or so. That is certainly a very important thing to consider and understanding what your commissions are. So week 2 homework, we asked that you create an Excel or purchase a program to keep track of your logins and your passwords. Incredibly important. You know, we offer a lot of carriers here, which then creates a lot of usernames, logins, and passwords, not only for myself as a personal writing agent, but then also for the agency. So when you create an agency, it's double the usernames and passwords or logins. So get an Excel created. If you need help, we have templates for you. Just simply reach out or purchase a program that will help you. There's a ton of password programs out there that allow for you to store the passwords securely in their program. Typically, they're backed up through Amazon Web Services or GoDaddy or Google, someone who has a secure, HIPAA secure style password protection or server base. So purchase a password protection program. There are some that are as little as, you know, $50, $60 a year, and they will store your passwords for you where they're not necessarily on your computer, but in this program. Include your E&O expiration, state license expiration. Providing that as you receive it will help ensure that your commissions are paid in a timely fashion, that you remain compliant, and that we're able to make sure that you're not ever losing a state license because you accidentally wrote business there and the carrier didn't have your updated state license, or you forgot to update that state license, which most carriers have a zero tolerance policy. If you accidentally write a carrier or a product in a different state for an MAPD, PDP, and you're not licensed there, one, you're not getting paid, and two, you most likely will not be writing that carrier any longer. Three, you may lose all your renewals, which is a huge deal, that you may have to go out and either rewrite those consumers, or you may just simply lose that book of business that you've worked so hard to obtain. Log into your state DIFS portal, review your CE credits, ensure information is correct and up to date once again, and update your information in NIPR, the NIPR website, NIPR.com. If you need links to any of this, certainly let us know. But make sure that your email and your phone number and your address, etc., are current in NIPR. And in doing so, certainly review your CE credits and make sure that that biannual CE credit is up to date and taken care of. We had a little more homework than I expected. So we're going to continue to rec through this. Contracting. Different products require different contracting. This whole industry is so interesting, how you have your life insurance agents, and then you have your annuity agents, and then you have your Medicare agents, which some only offer MedSup, some only offer MAPD, and then you have your, right? It continues to get more and more convoluted. And the more products you have, the more retention you'll have with your consumers. And we'll continue to hone in on that as the summer months hopefully continue to keep warming up and bringing us new months here. But to discuss this briefly with you, your Medicare Advantage plans, your MAPD or your MA, right, Medicare Advantage that don't include prescription drugs, or your prescription drug plans, they do require this annual test, which is your AHIP. Once again, it's launching June 24th this year. That national test opens the door for you to be able to offer Medicare Advantage and prescription drug plans. You will need to certify with the carriers to conduct that business. So if you wish to offer carrier A, you'll need to take carrier A's specific certification prior to carrier A allowing for you to offer their Medicare Advantage or prescription drug plans. If you wish to offer carrier B, the same will hold true. Now, keep in mind, If you certify with a carrier and you write business with that carrier, you'll have to recertify the following year in order to get paid your renewals. So if you pick up a carrier that you may or may not think you're going to write, and you end up writing 3 apps that year, 2 apps that year, 1 app that year, because it wasn't very competitive, or you weren't working that particular area like you thought you were going to, or life happens, right? You have to recertify with that carrier in order to get paid your renewals. If you are choosing to drop any carriers and limit the amount of certifications that you're planning on doing this upcoming year, you need to either sell that book of business, let us know through SES, we'll make an offer to you, sell it to another licensed agent, provide it to a sibling, but you need to do something with that book of business. Otherwise, the carriers will suck up those renewals from you. So it is very important that, once again, you keep track of who you're certifying with, keep track of your commissions, which we'll help you with here in a second, but more importantly, understand those renewals and the importance of those, that if you wrote 2 apps and you're being paid $45 a month, that's $500 a year that you're walking away from simply because you chose not to either take that 15-minute certification to keep those renewals. You didn't rewrite that book. You should have reached out to those 2 or 3 consumers and moved them to a different plan if possible. Or you should have sold that book of business or assigned that book of business to your FMO or to another agent. There is one carrier we'll go through this summer that does not require the AHIP. So the PNC agents that are on at this point in time, welcome. Hopefully this is good information for you as well. But you can increase your product base from just offering property and casualty by offering Medicare with United Health. United Health is the only carrier that does not require the AHIP. You can offer United Health MedSup, MAPD, and PDP through their platform, through their training platform, which is through Jarvis. And by certifying with United Health, you can negate taking the AHIP or any other certifications. But keep in mind, you'll only be offering United Health, good, bad, or ugly. So MedSup, most carriers and states are just in time. So currently across the entire United States, there's 2 states that are not just in time, Pennsylvania being one of them. When you wish to offer a MedSup product, you'd be on the phone with someone, or you'd have a referral from someone, you'd get on the SCS quoting engine, you'd find the right carrier, you'd run their rates for them. At that time, you can always reach out. We'll send you a PDF, or we'll mail out a paper application to your consumer for you. The consumer would fill out the paper application. You'd complete the contract at that time, and we would submit your contract as well as the application to the carrier at the same time. That's what just in time is called. They don't want to contract you for the thought that you might write some business. They would much rather get that application and contract at the same time and get that submitted. If you feel as though you're going to write someone in another state, or you feel as though you're going to write someone even in your resident state, you're more than welcome to contract. We will submit that contract to the carrier. The carrier then would provide you your agent writing number and also provide you access to complete an online or a telephonic application, which is nice, where you're not having to go through that paper application for your first step every time in selling MedSup products. Keep in mind, Medicare supplemental plans, as discussed, they do have out-of-state appointment fees. Many of them even have resident state appointment fees. So it's a good idea to get onto the SCS agent portal under the MedSup quoting engine to be able to run your rates and see who might be competitive. Don't go gangbusters picking up 20 or 25 carriers in a state that you just got a referral in, because it may end up costing you more money than what that referral is actually providing to you as commission. If you have any questions, certainly reach out. We'd be happy to go through all that with you further as well. Your annuity, your long-term care, these do require additional certifications. The state of Arizona, for instance, has an annuity certification through the state And then you would also need to take whatever certification through that carrier for that product. So before you run out and take a gaggle of certifications to be able to offer whatever carrier you're planning on writing an annuity with, it is really important for us to help you understand what annuity you most likely will be writing to take that annuity certification and not the other 28 that that carrier offers. Your long-term care, same holds true. You would need to complete a state, either resident or out-of-state certification. You can take that through your continued ed CE credits as well, that you can take the long-term care class to provide you those CE credits, but you would need additional certifications on the annuity and the long-term care prior to conducting that business. Ancillaries, your dental, your vision, your accident, your cancer, your hospital indemnity, etc. Typically, these carriers are requesting that you contract first, none of which obviously require any certifications of any type or kind. So if you are looking at picking up, a carrier's cancer policy because a consumer had a question about it, certainly reach out, because there's a dozen different cancer policies through a dozen different carriers. We can discuss underwriting with you and then run rates with you, so that way you're helping the consumer with the best plan. But once again, you'll need to contract first. All contracts are found via DocuSign through the agent portal. No certifications, once again, are required. Your life and final expense. We will be diving deeply into the life and final expense, I believe, at the end of May, and the changes, the constant changes, and then the COVID changes that are changing that final expense and life insurance underwriting, etc. You will need to complete your anti-money laundering. There is no cost generally to complete that AML course, but you would need to complete that anti-money laundering, and most carriers are just in time, specifically on the life insurance side. So if you are in need of adding any additional product lines, or you have an interest in adding additional product lines, we'll be going through these product lines in depth this summer, underwriting, pros, cons, what we provide to you to help you write more business, etc. But this really is the initial breakdown of contracting and understanding how to get contracted, and more importantly, how to keep your renewals. It's a huge deal. I cannot emphasize this enough. We're going to go through commissions and renewals here in the next 2 to 3 weeks, I believe. But it's incredibly important that you understand you're not out writing a Medicare Advantage plan for $200 and change, that you're setting yourself up to receive commissions for years and years and years to come. But it's so important that you protect yourself on the back end and have enough knowledge on the back end, knowing that I have to recertify, I have to take my AHIP, or I have to dump this book of business to someone else prior to retiring or exiting the industry if you choose to do so. What is your exit strategy? Watching certain TV shows and seeing certain businesses come on a carpet and ask others for funding, most of those companies have an exit strategy. They're looking to grow to a certain size and then sell. They're looking to take their product and actually have someone else purchase the rights of that product to manufacture it under their name. What is your exit strategy? It's really important to think this through. How long do you plan on remaining in this industry? How long are your renewals being paid out to you? What is your 3-year, your 5-year, and maybe your 10-year game plan? I know it's been rough with COVID, that we're all kind of in the woods and can't really see the forest, but it is so, so important for you during the slower months to really get that business game plan together, because I assure you, your family and your children, your business partners, or whomever will really appreciate that if something or when something happens to you. So death, dismemberment, retirement, maybe you found another opportunity that's absolutely amazing and you cannot turn it down. Any investments that you're making along the way that maybe they've paid out Maybe you won the lottery and you're like, I am done with this industry. Whatever your exit strategy is, it's incredibly important to have a game plan in place to make sure that whatever your decisions are through your business, that you have a game plan set up to make sure that, once again, you're not losing renewals, you're not losing your book, you're not being burned by someone, and that your family or your successors are set up appropriately. Creating an exit strategy. So what happens if you become ill or unable to work or complete your CE credits, complete your AHIP? What happens if you're incapacitated for 90 days or whatever during that time period? I need you to reach out to your FMO, reach out to Senior Enrollment Solutions. We'll talk about moving that book of business over or assigning that book of business. We have had agents fail their certifications. Oftentimes the carriers only provide you 3 attempts. If you fail those 3 attempts and your renewals are gone, we'll assign those renewals to SES to then pay you those renewals, even though you can't write that carrier for a year. And that's a problem to a certain extent, depending on obviously how competitive they are, but at least you're not losing that book of business. So if something does occur prior to it occurring, come up with a game plan and really think through, if I am incapacitated, where is my book going and what can I do to help set up the successor? What is a successor program and how can you participate? Well, there's basically 3 different ways of moving your book of business. And there's been agents that have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars due to death that they have not been able to provide to their families as renewals because they did not have a successor program established. So establish one. I can't emphasize this enough. You have basically 3 different ways of establishing a successor program. First is through the carrier, through their compliance, their requirements, and their business existence, right? So that successor program through the carrier, some have specific forms that would need to be filled out. They're looking for death certificates. They're looking for everything to know that you are no longer capable or able at all to be writing business for them. If you sell or you move your book of business to another licensed agent, maybe your spouse isn't licensed at this time, but you're wanting your renewals to go to your spouse. Your spouse would have 6 months generally to get licensed, take the AHIP and certify with whatever carrier you're currently receiving commissions from to transfer that book of business over to them. They must be licensed, once again, appointed and certified in every state that you've conducted business in, with every carrier you've set up business or conducted business with. And I assure you, at a time of death, when your spouse is mourning you, trying to figure out the bills, your life insurance policy, taking care of the kids, or whatever else is going on in that individual's life at that point in time, that's something they're not going to want to do. It obviously takes time to set all of that up. And more importantly, just to get licensed itself certainly takes time. And that's where, as an agency, we have contracts in place. Whenever you fill out that broker intake form, we ask you who your beneficiary is. I'm not looking for your will. I'm not looking for your living trust. I'm not asking any of that information from you. But I need to know that if something happens to you and I'm getting kickbacks on paying your commissions out to you, or I see that you haven't certified this year and we've reached out to you a few times to help you through that certification process, if you just drop off the face of the earth, I want to reach out to one of your loved ones and ask them what's going on with you and make sure that you're okay. And if you did pass away, to set up the successor program with them immediately and help them through, or meet with them to walk through whatever renewals, commissions you're currently receiving, so that way your family doesn't lose that. So please, if we do not have a beneficiary set up, if you're confused or you want to change your beneficiary down the road, whatever it may be, please reach out to us and keep us in the loop on how that side of your life per se is going. Maybe you get divorced, right? And you don't want your spouse to be the beneficiary. I totally understand that. But we need to know at least who a child is, or if you have a child, or if a sibling is going to take this over, where do you want your funds going? Because if you do not point the direction for your renewals to go somewhere, they are going to be gone. And that's heartbreaking, as you may have hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in renewals coming over the next decade of your life. That is a huge life policy that, once again, you'd be missing out on providing it to that beneficiary. We request and we hold your beneficiary information for all of our licensed agents. I don't give a damn if it's $50 a month. $600 a year over a decade is $7,000. That's enough money to help a child at least start school that I would love to pay out to your family and your loved ones. In event of notification from your family or carrier, and this is part of being organized and setting up your business model, is letting your family know where these logins are, passwords are, so they can get in and review your commissions if necessary, who your upline is, how to make contact with them in the event something happens. Obviously, I'm not expecting to be first on the list by any means, but we need to be on that list in some fashion to be able to make sure that we're rectifying all of this with them and allowing for your commissions to continue to roll through to support your family. We'll contact the beneficiary to begin transferring the book and assisting with any options that they may have. I don't care if they want to get licensed or certified. I don't care if they just want us to pay the commissions through us to them, and to make sure that those funds, that the funds that you rightfully earned, continue to keep being transferred down to your family. I cannot emphasize the importance of where you're placing your contracts, how you're being paid, and what they have, they being your upline, they being the carrier, what documents, requirements, and contracts do you have with them, that if something happens to you today, can your family, with help, log in, pull commissions, know where your book of business is, know what to expect in regards to renewal income, to at least live the next month, 2 or 3 prior to your life insurance policy paying out? How can we help protect your beneficiaries and your heirs, not only for the next few months, but for years to come? We can only do so much in asking you for your beneficiary information, gathering whatever information we can, helping to encourage you to have some kind of Word doc or exit strategy set up that's shared with a loved one, a child, a sibling. Look, if something happens to me, I happen to be in an industry that pays out kind of like a 401k or retirement plan, but I need for you to understand how this is paid out, how much money to expect, and to make sure that you can give these funds to my children or whatever, so you don't lose those renewals. I cannot tell you the percentage of agents that lose renewals by either exiting the industry and not selling that book or transferring it, or passing away and not having some kind of successor program set up, so that way their loved ones know how to obtain these funds. So, your homework, I want you to review. I want you to read your contracts, specifically any contracts that you have from an upline, not necessarily the carrier. If you need help in doing a search on a PDF, or you need help pulling any contracts that you cannot find, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to provide them to you. You can always once again go into the SES agent portal under the carrier tab. All of these contracts are in DocuSign for you to review if you want to review via just right in the DocuSign or off the off the SES agent portal. You're also able just to view it in a PDF or download it as a PDF to do searches for Successor program or what that particular carrier is looking for from you in order to set up a Successor program. I cannot emphasize the importance of this enough, and we're going to talk about this a few more times over the summer, obviously much briefer, but setting up these renewals for these products that do pay out renewals, which is pretty much any product anymore or in this industry, it's so important to make sure that people remain getting compensated. Let your loved ones know where your tax info is, which should then have all of your 1099s included, which would really help them understand who you wrote, kind of what you wrote, or what logins they need or carriers they need to reach out to. Let them know where your book of business is organized. These are my consumers. This is what commission I'm being paid out. We'll go through that further next week in setting all of that up. Who your upline information is or where they're located. Hey, honey, I have 28 contracts through Senior Enrollment Solutions. This is who they are. Here's their card or what have you. Letting them know at least where your hierarchy is and who to reach out for questions in that time of grieving and crisis in their life. Organize your book of business to ensure knowledge on plans, carriers, and products, and more importantly, the clients that you've sold. Not for your loved one to reach out, but if you do happen to have another agent that you're selling your book of business to, it might be nice for that agent to send out a letter saying, hey, Robert has passed. I'm taking care of his book of business. I know if you try his phone number, it's not going to go through. Reach out to me instead. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have or whatever the case may be. The relationship that your family makes with that other agent certainly may behoove of you to create a contract now of some kind saying, hey, take 20% for admin fee or take half, just at least pay my family something if that is the route that you're looking to go down. Most agents end up selling or their families sell that book of business back to the agency so we can continue to administer those commissions and those renewals for the life of the policy. Once again, I cannot emphasize sharing this information with your loved ones. I know many of us that are on the call talk to a lot of seniors. And I talk to a lot of seniors where, the husband wrote all the bills out and the wife doesn't even know who their checking account is through. She has no clue. Or the husband has no idea who their auto insurance is through or what, right? It's sharing that information privately with the ones few who need to know this information to help make sure that you're protecting your family and protecting your business and really protecting, once again, all of that hard work that you put into while in this industry. Just about 11 o'clock. I once again will try and respect your time. Thank you for attending. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our agent services line. You can always text us 24/7 or email us at agentservices@seniorenrollmentsolutions.com. Once again, anything agent related, you should be able to find on the agent portal, reviewing carrier contracts, carrier phone numbers, agent services, fax numbers. More importantly, that MedSup quoting engine, that proprietary quoting engine through SES, that if you are looking to obtain any out-of-state licenses or you have referrals out of state, you can either go to the referral page and we'll pay you for that referral, or you're more than welcome to set up that additional carrier or contract in that state in which you believe you may be writing business. For any questions, agent related, certainly reach out to us. We'll be on once again for another hour to help answer any questions in the chat room. Any questions that you may have that may have not been covered, certainly reach out to us and we'll make sure that we cover them in upcoming webinars. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any additional questions, please reach out to us and let us know. And once again, these webinars will be up on YouTube here shortly as soon as the transcriptions go through, or we'd be happy to send over the recording of this webinar to you. Enjoy the rest of your morning and I'll speak to you soon.